Anna, thank you so much for joining us on the Hertz Healing podcast on the day that your own podcast has just launched.
Yeah, it has. I don't even have words for it having launched because I can't believe that it's finally happened. And then it's also, I've never been on social media my entire life. I've avoided anything public. So I've decided to do the complete opposite and do a show where I speak about my sex life and my previous eating disorder and addiction. So it just felt like a nice little baptism by fire.
Well, we're very, very honoured to have you here today. Would you mind sharing more about the work that you're doing now and what made you want to join us for this conversation today?
Sure. So, well, firstly, I think it's really important what you do in terms of speaking openly about life's difficulties and then also getting on the other side of it. That is sort of what my work centers around. So I am a journalist and my work kind of focuses on where mental health, addiction, all of these different things intersect with culture and society's reaction to that, for like all of the misinformation in the press, just as an example. And I am a few years sober at the moment. And, oh God, at the moment, fuck, that sounds really morbid. I am a few years sober and also in eating disorder recovery. And a huge part of being where I am now is because I heard other people sharing so honestly about what they'd gone through. Hence why I've started my podcast. I feel like such a knob plugging it. How to get wet when you're dry. And I wanted to speak about these issues. I wanted to speak about mental health and addiction and how our relationship with ourselves kind of affects our relationship with everybody else in a way that was accessible and funny. Because I can look at my darkest moments now and find laughter in that. And I think it's really important to do that. I think that's healing. And also to show that there's light at the end of the tunnel, not in the scary way, but in the good way. So yeah, that is what I'm doing at the moment.
No, I think it's brilliant. And I think, as you said, if you can find the humour now in those awful moments that 15 years ago, if you had said to yourself, one day, sweetheart, you're going to find this quite funny and it's going to be the source of quite an amusing conversation, you'd be like, oh, just fuck off. And I just can't even fathom that would be the case. But actually, quite often we have some great anecdotes, and not that I would wish anyone to have an eating disorder or an addiction or anything, but it is extraordinary the realms to which our mind takes us to be honest with you, and the behaviours to which it drives us to.
Oh my gosh, 100%. I like what you said, right? Because I can laugh about these things, but it doesn't mean necessarily that I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And I feel very lucky because a lot of people don't recover. And I think a big part of that is sort of shame and stigma and the fact that these things aren't always handled properly from a medical perspective and funding, all of these different things, right? But I look back at where I was when it was all happening, and it felt as though I was in a dream, some sort of a simulation, because I was so anxious all of the time that it didn't feel like reality, and I just felt so stuck. So if someone had said to me then that I'm going to laugh about the fact that I had to put, fairy liquid over a pack of biscuits in the bin so I wouldn't eat them, I would probably punch them in the face.
No, it's, as regular listeners will know, I used to go to 20 different bakeries every Saturday, and I used to spend all day going to get about 45 different loaves of bread, and every Saturday night would be my bread ceremony. I would sit down and I would have a slice of every single loaf of bread, and that was what I lived for all week. It was just this anticipation of this basically bread binge.
Bread day.
And and it was the absolute highlight of my week. And now the thought of the exhaustion and the depths of, oh my God, it was grating on my soul when it got to a certain point, and that's why eventually I had to stop. But this went on for about 10 years, and it was, these extreme behaviours that are just baffling to us now.
And it is so hard to stop. Binge eating is actually the most common eating disorder out of all of them. And it usually intersects with anorexia or bulimia because your body goes into desperately needing food. And then also I think because these foods are labeled as taboo, societally speaking, it makes people more inclined to then binge on them. And because we're surrounded by, oh, you need to look like this, etc., I felt more shame about the binging than I did in anything else. because for me, that was the ultimate. You have no self-control, no willpower, you are disgusting. Which just, it really wasn't the case. But so it's very hard to quit. Again, I have a horrific memory, so I could be making this all up. But I did speak to an addiction counselor once who had said something along the lines of binge eating can be harder to quit than heroin. And I also had my bread thing. But it was, mine would just be I'd go from shop to shop to shop to shop, getting absolutely everything. I was like a fucking shark. By the way, I like that we can swear on this. I was like a shark. I would have one taste of something that in my mind was taboo, and I'd be off. And I just couldn't stop. And it was horrible. But yeah.
I called it the fuck it button. It was like once that button had been switched, it was like, right, if I have a mouthful of that pudding, I am a goner now. That is me gone for the next 3-4 hours. And I've just gone down that path of just a bottomless binge, essentially. And it was a really horrible, uncontrollable feeling. And I never thought that I'd get to the stage now where if I really feel like it, I can have a couple of spoons of a pudding or some ice cream, and actually that I can fast forward. And that, I think that was the point that I got to with the binging, where I could really foresee how awful it was going to make me feel if I went down that rabbit hole of actually going ahead with a full-on binge. Whereas actually if I just stopped with one pudding or a few scoops of whatever it was, then I wouldn't actually have to then pay back for the binge, which essentially for me meant a week of restriction and 6-7 hours of exercise every day for the next week. And it just sort of it was on a perpetual cycle. And I think that's the sort of horrible thing about the binging is, like you said, the shame, the guilt, the self-loathing, and not pleasant.
No, but I know what you mean. And I think it isn't as easy, and I don't know if this was the case for you, but it's not as easy as just sort of stopping. I think anorexia, for instance, kills more people than any psychiatric disorder. And these things are really underestimated. And for me, I could only really get a handle on my eating disorder with lots of support and with the help of other people and sort of, other people showing me love that I really couldn't show myself at that point. So it was a horrible time, and it took years for me to really, I'd say it's only in the last, I stopped with all of the behaviors in terms of the binging and restricting when I got sober. So 3.5 years ago, thanks to, a lot of help from some amazing people, which in itself is a privilege because, there's not heaps of funding into rehabs and all of this stuff now. But I still struggled immensely for maybe a couple of years with the body checking and the looking at myself in the mirror all of the time. And if I looked at myself on a bad day, I would convince myself that I was double my weight and stuff. So those tendencies were still there. I just wasn't acting on them. And it's not fun, but I'm just very grateful to be where I am with it now. So, yeah.
No, and I think it's a really, it's an amazing thing to be able to tell people it is possible to heal and to get to a place where you actually can eat in a sort of quote unquote normal, even though I hate that word, but in a regular way, in a way that you're not depleted, you're not so full that you feel awful, and that sense of self-hatred. And it's amazing how even in the last year I've seen myself, I'm just more flexible. I just don't care as much. Before I'd be checking labels, I would be, on the exact same regimen of food every day, and I would have to prepare it so I knew exactly what had gone in what and how much of this had gone in that. And now the exhaustion that's attached to that, it just gets to a point where, and I never thought I'd be able to say this, but I just want to do other things. And I really love food, and I still go to great lengths to eat delicious food. And I probably, over time, that might wane, and it's a massive priority, and it's something I really look forward to. But it's just less important. Is that something you found?
Food just becomes food. But I think when life feels out of control, that's when any form of a coping mechanism can, kind of crop up again. It's like a way to control things even without realizing it. And so I didn't realize that that's what I was doing, before I entered recovery, because everything felt so, that this was something that I could focus on that was sort of tangible. But now food is just food. And I think also bearing in mind that normal people, I hate that word too, normal people, will emotional eat and do these things, and just that I don't have to hit the fuck it button after, and that it doesn't matter. Something that my therapist had me do at the beginning was I wrote a list of all of my fear foods, and she said pick one and have it every single day until it's just food. And I did that, and then I would add and add and add, and all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, this is fucking fantastic. I think I had a Magnum a day for my first year of sobriety.
I love that.
Yeah. And past week was a really good week. So I just kind of neutralizing these things and knowing that, yeah, I could go home and make out with a pizza now, and it doesn't mean I have to hate myself after.
Yeah.
But, you know, the world doesn't make it easy for us to feel that way.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's so liberating when you can get to that stage, because I think these foods which keep us in that perpetual state of fear, they then become even more appealing, right? So it's like, okay, if you eliminate the pasta, it becomes this huge thing, and then you crave it. You're sort of like, oh my God, your mouth's watering. And actually, over time, as you become more satiated, and as actually things aren't so off limits, they just become less appealing naturally if you don't like them. And if you do like them, then great. And I've got this relationship with sugar now. I always used to think I was such a sweet person. I used to love sweet things, but actually that was because I was so deprived of all the nutrients in my body that, of course, I was attracted to the thing that was going to give me the most energy in the quickest possible way.
Yeah.
Whereas actually now that I'm more satiated, it's like quite often if someone offers me a pudding, I'm just like, I don't really feel like it, because in other ways I'm satiated enough. It's not that it's like, oh my God, this is a bad, wrong food. Of course, I fight against that narrative in my head still, but it's more that I actually don't feel like this, and I don't have to eat it if I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry, I interrupt people all the time by mistake. It's because I'm always so excited when I agree with something. I just, you know.
You go ahead and interrupt me.
Yeah.
How did your eating disorder start? Will you just take us through sort of early signs and how old were you when it started?
So I look back at, by the way, I love getting to speak about this all because I think it's really important. Because it's, you know, in media, it's kind of sexy to be really skinny. You know, I was, you know, heroin chic and all of this stuff, and all of the body pressures there. But at the same time, I think there was a Harvard study or something. Again, this could be total bullshit, but there was some form of a study that showed that fat phobia was, a couple of years ago, the only thing that was on the rise. And so I really internalized that. And I remember always sort of having a secret relationship with food. My mom would find like lint wrappers. I'm doing so much brand placement. I hope you get sponsorship off the back of this. My mom would always find like lint wrappers hidden behind the radiator, or when Pret's Christmas sandwich came out, even if she was making dinner, I'd be fucking right there, and I'd hide it. And then gradually, it's so funny because, oh, it's so funny. I just remember being disassociated for a very long time. And when my autoimmune disorder crept up, when I was, I think, 18 or 19 years old, all of a sudden I started to eat more and more. But I don't even remember eating more, really. I just remember I was stuck inside because I'd had a pretty hardcore surgery. I had... It's called, I'm in remission, thank goodness. It's called myasthenia gravis. And it's basically when your nerve endings decide to stop doing their thing. And I was paralyzed in my face and my arms. And if you exert yourself too much physically or emotionally, you can go into a crisis where you can stop breathing. And I was lucky in a lot of ways because I had a benign tumor on my thymus. And in some cases with people with myasthenia, it's already such a rare condition. So there's not a lot of research into it. But in some of those conditions, if you have the tumor removed, the thymus removed, you go into remission. And thank goodness I went into that. But, you know, it was a year of my life when every single person around me was kind of going out and going into university and living. And I was, you know, semi-paralyzed, living at my parents' place. The world just felt on pause for me. And for a long time, I thought there was a chance that something really bad could happen to me because none of the meds were working for me. And the next step was, you know, plasma transfusions for the rest of my life. And couldn't do sport, this, whatever. But that's when the eating really started, because it was sort of my only comfort. It had always been a thing for me, but that's when it just went, how the fuck are you doing, Anna? And next thing you know, I woke up kind of 5 years later, and I was larger to the point where, you know, doctors, I was classified as obese. And then I sort of drank alongside of that. The drinking always coincided. And right before COVID happened, my anorexia kicked off. You know, the world was so out of control, and this unknowingly had become a thing for me. And I lost half of my body weight to the point where I was underweight within a year. So that's when everything kind of came to a head. And it was funny because people's reactions to me were, I was completely, and I resent this so fucking much, and this is a comment on the world's fat phobia, and this isn't me saying that people of a certain weight are, you know, not gorgeous or anything, because they are, but I was completely ignored or treated pretty badly in my experience when I was larger. And the second I started to lose the weight, oh my goodness, did my life change. It was like I'd gone into a first class lounge that I didn't know existed. You know, for a lot of bad reasons also, but that just put more pressure on me. By the way, tell me when to shut up, because I can talk forever.
No, you go. No, I want to hear.
That just put more pressure on me to lose more weight, but more was never enough. And then the anorexia started to happen with the binge eating and the drinking, and it just all came to a point where I was suicidal. And I rang a member of my family just saying, I'm going to kill myself if this doesn't stop now. I really blamed myself for the fact that I couldn't get a handle on it by myself. I was never going to be able to do that solo. You know, I really think that our heads are dangerous places if we stay in them alone. And I guess because it's so normal to go to extreme lengths to be thin nowadays, it didn't look abnormal to other people until it really, you know, reached a point where it was obvious I was super unwell. And I was so fucked off when that happened, because all of a sudden the people that were praising me were saying that I looked gaunt. And yeah, it was really difficult. And then I went to rehab, which again, I've said before, is a privilege, right?
This was in the UK?
No. So rehab can be really expensive here. And so I went to South Africa, where it was more affordable. And affordable is a stretch. It was still fucking expensive. And I was there for 3 months. I thought I was going to go for 2 weeks. I spoke to my boss. God bless him. I still thank him to this day, because I just passed my probation period that day. The next day I call him and I just say, so listen, I have to go to rehab because I'm about to lose my shit. And he was so sweet about it. And I went to treatment for 3 months, not 2 weeks. I thought that I was going to be fixed really fast. I mean, fixed, you know. And it kind of, you know, the getting to where I am now, sort of, that's where it all started for me. Yeah.
It's so interesting you say that, because I also went into treatment. I mean, I was about 24 at the time. So yeah, 11 years ago for my eating disorder. And like you, I had that mindset of, oh, right, I'm going for 2 weeks. It's fine. I can do 2 weeks. I was there for 7 months. And I remember even in the sort of sixth, seventh month mark, it was, I'm going to say that again. The 6th, 7th month, no, let me just say, even after 6 months, it was very apparent that I could stay there for a year, 2 years, if I really wanted to heal properly. And actually, I decided that I had done my time there, and I was never going to be handed a certificate saying you are healed. This is your ticket now to just a life free of your eating disorder. But it was the start of a very, very long journey. And I think it was the first time that I'd ever experienced a sort of a memory of being able to eat in a quote unquote normal way, even though emotionally it did nothing for me. And actually, I'm really glad you had a good experience in treatment, because I had I didn't.
I hated it so much. It was the malpractice fucking galore, right? Because people, I was in treatment with, this is where I discovered that, hey, I'm also an alcoholic. I always joke that I went in anorexic and I left an alcoholic, because I was I was in the treatment center amongst people with heroin addictions, etc., because it is an addiction, an eating disorder. And I was in so much denial about my drinking because I was just focusing on the food. And so I forgot why I was bringing this up, but there was a reason. Yeah.
We were just saying about the ticket, to saying that you're ready to go, and as though this is going to be your source of healing and you're going to leave fixed.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I think it's no bad thing that you left at 7 months, because again, fact check me, but in the NICE guidelines, so those are a form of guidelines when it comes to treating eating disorders, and they do say in it that sort of inpatient care should be sort of last resort. Again, please fact check me on this, because I think you can become institutionalized in some ways. And it was very jarring to come back into the scene of the crime for me. There's other reasons why the NICE guidelines state that, but yeah, coming back into the real world off the back of that was woo, because all of a sudden I was in my apartment again, where I would have at 4 a.m. been in bed with such bad anxiety that I couldn't sleep, just going, do not get up and eat that. And then I would go and I'd eat something, go back to bed, and keep going. So yeah, I think getting used to being in the real world again, because I people, places and things, I can't control any of that. Can't control people's comments, can't control the shops that are around me or situations that are going to happen. And so slowly but surely being okay with that helped me a lot. But again, it took a hot second. Yeah,
and I think it's so often the case, and I think it definitely is very, very triggering coming back into your old environment, because it becomes very safe, like the routine and the rhythm and the food and everything that goes alongside being in a treatment facility. That then becomes your source of safety. So as you said, if you're already feeling out of control and unsafe within yourself, you take that away, and then suddenly you're back in almost like the devil's pit, and you're thinking, oh my god, well, I used to do this, so how on earth, my brain hasn't caught up, so why on earth wouldn't I do this? And suddenly I found over 2, 3, 4 months, each time the behavior started to escalate more and more and more, and before I knew it, I was back doing the same old behaviors. Having said that, I then had an experience of treatment about 6 years later, and that then sort of sent me on a very different trajectory when I came back, because I could foresee what the obstacles were going to be. And actually the treatment facility I went to was actually a lot more attuned to the fact that this was what was going to happen when I got home. So we did a lot of cope ahead sort of strategies and a lot of forward planning. And although, yeah, of course I dipped back, I didn't go nearly as far back as I had done the time before, or I wasn't back on the same level as when I left. So I think it's different for everyone, but I think sometimes it can take multiple attempts at treatment.
Oh yeah, these things, they're not linear.
No,
they're not linear. And yeah, again, I don't believe in the term fixed and stuff, for instance. These things are up and down, and it depends on the day. And it's so crazy just how powerful the head is, right? And I think it took a long time for me to not blame myself also. So that was a really big one. But when I left treatment, I was still wearing clothes that were way too big for me, because I had no idea of how I looked. I think I still don't have an idea of how I look. With my podcast coming out, I'm being filmed. So it's the first time, as someone who wants to mini sig at the thought of social media, that I have been having to look at video of me and hear my voice. And I was so self-conscious when I started to see these videos. My poor producers, they have the patience and love of saints, right? I was constantly messaging them saying, do I look like a roast potato? And it's it's so fucked up. Like, that is still there in me.
It's not fucked up. Georgie will tell you that I don't even look at the video. I don't look at
I
any of the
stopped now.
videos. I can't. I literally,
Yeah.
you know, just the thought of it, I know I would get into a complete just spiral of thinking, oh my God, I look awful. Look at what my body language is saying.
No,
Oh my
you're a
God.
hot potato. You don't
Well, you're
look
very
awful.
sweet. Thank you, Han. So are you. But I don't know how people do it. And the same with you. I don't do any social media for that reason as well. That just the scrutiny, the endless scrutiny of not of other people, of really me on myself. It just, it doesn't worth thinking about. With I'm interested though. So with when you lost the weight through when you say you were obese, was that through binge eating? I mean, was that through an unhealthy relationship with food, or was that as a result of the MG?
The binge eating.
Yeah.
So I didn't start binge eating in the way.
No. I mean, so let me rephrase that because I'm not very clear. So just going back to when you say that you had the MG and then you became obese afterwards.
Yeah.
Was that obesity due to binge eating, or was that just due to the illness, the autoimmune condition?
No,
MG?
so that was definitely. So, I mean, look, I think I couldn't go walk like I used to. I couldn't go do any of those things because I was really, really unwell, and I was very scared that if I exerted myself, something bad was going to happen. And having the surgery and everything, it really took me out for a while because they had to cut through like my sternum and one of my ribs, and then, you know, I just got very comfortable in that, the sadness that I was in. It's very hard to get out of that. And when I say get out of that, I don't mean that I think it's not something that I think I had. I don't mean that in a shitty way about myself, right? Like, oh, you couldn't get out of it. So my eating then was different because, again, it was all, you know, it looks like it's about the food or the weight, and it felt like that at the time, but it really has absolutely nothing to do with, you know, what I weigh or what was on my plate. It was, you know, internal stuff and stuff I was numbing. But my eating was different then from when I was binge eating later on, because I wasn't binge eating to
numb yourself out of the emotions.
I think I was still numbing myself, but it wasn't this sort of feast or famine thing. I was consistently just eating a lot.
So it wasn't the punishment rewards.
Yeah. I was just consistently eating a lot. It was just, food was my comfort. And I think, you know, the worse that I got treated by the world with all of this, the worse I felt. And I am very pro body positivity and everything. I want to emphasize that. And I'm not saying that everyone's experience is going to be the same as mine. And, you know, I'm also aware, like, I'm a privileged white woman, right? But that's just like what I found personally. And I really think that I would have loved my body if people weren't so shitty about it. So, yeah.
But when you say that you're still numbing your emotions, I mean, as far as I'm aware, that is a sign of binge eating disorder.
Totally. 100%. My relationship with food was, you know, I think it's the same as how my relationship with food was down the line, but I was just doing it differently because I was consistently just eating a lot all of the time. But when I was binge eating, it was more, I was aware of it. And it was this more feast or famine situation where I would not eat anything and I would walk probably 40,000 steps a day or 30,000 steps a day and limit myself to, you know, the bare minimum with food, to the point where I started to lose my hair on my head and everything. And so then when I would binge eat, it would just be, I've had something, fuck it, I have to do this now. And then I'll just, you know, go back to how I was after, and I'll just walk more, I'll do this more. It's a really painful cycle. So in that way, that's what the difference was for me. You know, one was consistent, and then this was just, I don't know how to do it. I just want to go like, ah. Yeah. That's what it was. It was just like, ugh. And so yeah.
And how did you start to rebuild yourself when you came back from rehab? So you've talked about the drinking. So how did that start escalating when you came out of treatment?
Oh, so I stayed sober since treatment. So I I knew that if I drank, but when I didn't know that I had a drinking problem, what I did know was if I drank, my eating disorder would start again. Because when I had alcohol in my system, I would then binge eat. And then also, if I drank alcohol, I would in my mind be counting the calories. And calories are fucking bullshit, by the way. That's my PSA. So you would think that that would be a sign to me that I'm an alcoholic, that I am drinking, even though in my mind I'm sort of just like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And then I started to, the treatment center that I was in, because we were, amongst people with other addictions, and I still think eating disorders are different in a lot of ways. Like, I found it really hard, but I was listening to their stories, and addiction and eating disorders intersect way more than people realize. I think I can't really, it's annoying because like I love a fact, I love a data point, it literally gets me erect, but I can never remember them. But the gist of it is that the rates are a lot higher with, if you have an addiction thing, that at some point or another you will have
a food related issue.
And it's not like a guarantee, but the rates are just higher. And I started listening to what everyone else was saying, and it began to click. And I came back to London, and I remember the exact moment it was already a really big deal for me to go to a restaurant because I had been so scared of them, because I was just fucking on one whenever I would go. And I saw a waiter go past with a tray, and it had like a big glass of white wine on it, and I was shaking like a shitting dog. All of a sudden, it was just, again, that shark thing cropped up in me of, oh my God, I don't know if I can trust myself to not drink that right now. And I didn't, but that was the aha moment for me. And so the drinking was something I had to start looking at, which was, I really just decided to go for the top drums, right? I just was doing them all. So that was my first year realization. But yeah, the eating disorder and the drinking was totally connected, because I just didn't want to feel my body. And there would be a moment when I drank, because I hated myself all of the time. And there was only one moment of bliss with the drinking. I'd say maybe like 2 drinks in, where it would just feel like a warm hug. All of a sudden I could go, and I felt in my body. But then that lasted 5 seconds, and the aftermath and the anxiety and everything after. But yeah, I also didn't think I had a problem, because I just thought I was a party girl.
Had the drinking escalated when you were in the anorexic phase then?
Oh yeah.
So you were drinking heavily then?
So I didn't drink for a year when I had the anorexia, because calories in my mind, right? Again, bullshit. Calories are bullshit. But I then introduced a cheat meal once a week. Again, bullshit. And then that cheat meal involved a glass of wine. And then COVID happened, and that was when I introduced the glass of wine. And then next thing you know, that was turning into 2. Next thing you know, I was eating more food. And then I was binge eating and binge drinking. And then I would feel so distraught after that happened. And, I got myself into like crazy situations, and horrible things also happened to me in my drinking. And it just became this sort of really fucking shitty Groundhog Day situation. So yeah, I didn't think I had a problem, because I didn't drink for a year. And but then it just got worse and worse. And the cliche depiction of an alcoholic, a lot of people don't like that word. I personally love it, because I'm an alcoholic. But the cliche depiction of an alcoholic is not always the reality. And the drinking can get to wherever the depiction that I'm speaking about, it can get there. I could have really easily gotten there if I, didn't get help, if the help wasn't given to me, right? And if I didn't have that window of grace for some reason where I was just so desperate for it. But I didn't connect with what I thought a drinking problem was, because it's, you know, like look at all of the alcohol advertisements that we see out there, and it's drink responsibly. But then you also have, you know, all of the fast food advertisements, but then at the same time they shame us if we, you know, overdo it. And it's just all of these lines that were drawn that like I did not put there. And then the second I crossed them, I felt significantly worse, because you're just being told, it's up to you to control these things. Like, we're sorry that we're, you know, pushing this on you, making you feel like shit all of the time with, you know, whatever, I don't know, watching shit like Love Island and like wanting to just live on juice for a year after it. But I think I've gone on another one of my tangents, which is my specialty. But, you know, did I just make sense?
Yeah, you make total sense. But I think going back, when we were in treatment, and yeah, we were also sent to NA and AA 12-step meetings, and I remember going to one meeting and a guy was chairing, and he said, God, you know, I wish I had an addiction to broccoli or exercise. And I was sitting there and I was like, yeah, that's basically what's nearly killed me. And it's interesting because while you say there is an intersection and there is a lot of overlap, then with a process addiction like food or exercise, which, let's face it, to be healthy, we have to learn how to do in moderation. I mean, it's like saying to a cocaine addict, okay, have, you know, 3 lines of cocaine 3 times a day. Like, you know, not doable, right? And if you are an extremist, and as you say, a lot of us have that underlying addictive personality and the ability to go from 0 to 100 or 100 to 0, it's very, very hard to find that middle path. And I think that's what I really struggled with in those 12-step meetings, was I was there thinking, well, all of you guys can just abstain. If I could just not eat and just not exercise forevermore, then actually I'd find it a hell of a lot easier than letting myself go into a gym or go to a restaurant and order in a quote-unquote normal way, or sit down to a quote-unquote normal balanced plate of food, which is why I hate the word normal. But it's true. It's that. And I think for anyone listening who's in the grips of an eating disorder particularly, I think it's having faith that just eventually, as your body recalibrates, you just slowly start to find more joy in a bit more moderation. And it doesn't have to be what other people see as moderation. It could be your version of moderation. But, you know, and I hate it. What I really found hard in treatment was that notion of you have to have 3 meals and 3 snacks every day. And until that point, you are not better.
So that felt really, that for me felt really regimented also. But I think I personally really needed that, because I realized that I was 27 at the time, and I realized that I just didn't know how to eat. I didn't know what a meal was. And so it really helped me with that regularity. And then also because I had been so restrictive with myself, being in a situation where I wasn't having my safety food, so I couldn't really do the, you know, shitty calculations and stuff in my mind. It was really helpful for me to be in a situation where that was happening. That's the one thing that I think didn't suck about my rehab. But in it, because I couldn't trust myself at this point. And so I think I only could really tap into my hunger cues a year into recovery. That's when I started to realize, okay, I actually am hungry right now. I'm gonna do it. And now sometimes I eat for the sake of eating, because that is, you know, quotes, normal. And then, you know, sometimes I just listen to what do I feel like. If there's like a chocolate fondant in front of me, I'm gonna get my face all like in a gross way, like all in it. So, you know,
which is healthy, as you said. And I think that's the misconception, is that actually when you are in true recovery, it's normal to indulge. It's normal to just, you know, if you really don't like something, like, then leave it and don't eat it. And I do agree. Like, I wasn't making the point that I don't think that the structure is helpful to start with, but I think long term sometimes it's learning that you can like tap into that intuition. And actually, this thing of intuitive eating, again, I think it's problematic for people in the grips of like a really 100%. Hardcore eating disorder, because as you said, we can't trust our hunger cues. We don't know when we're satiated. We don't know when we're empty and we're full and we need to eat. But I think as your metabolism starts to come back online, and as you start to rebuild that relationship with yourself, it's amazing how those things start to fall into place slowly.
Yeah.
What was then the status? Did your did your autoimmune condition go into complete dormancy once you'd had the operation, or was that something? Yeah.
So the thing is, I mean, I don't really know, because I had the surgery, and I still had, fatigue in my face, and was part of it was also like I had a drooping eye and double vision, and so I still had, chronic fatigue and everything. And slowly but surely, I just, it wasn't happening anymore. I felt better. But I did still have so much anxiety off the back of it. And I would convince myself that the symptoms were coming back. Because, of course, I honestly, there were times where I thought I was going to fucking die. So I was hyper aware of everything that my body was doing. And, the autoimmune disorder happened at a time when I was just getting on with it, because I think as women, we just get on with it. And I think that's another reason why, it can take longer to get a diagnosis, because, we're kind of told we're sensitive, we're this, we're that. And, often a patch can be put over something medically instead of getting to the root cause. So why did I say all of this?
No, we were just talking about whether your autoimmune condition had gone into complete dormancy.
Yeah. So it's a funny one, because I still get scared that it could come back, because I'm only in remission, and there isn't heaps of research into this stuff at all. So it is a fear of mine. Probably once a year or something, I will get scared that it's happening. I actually think I've avoided doing it this whole time, but I have a little twitch in my face, that because when I had the myasthenia, because it was numb, I would always test to see if it was happening. It's like Bewitched, only if Bewitched was like if she was on crack. So it's sort of like, and so that's something I've carried with me, which is nice.
But do you think it added fuel to your recovery? Because I think I've had so many, injuries and fractures and sort of over the years. And I think when I feel my food now spiraling, it's a real stark reminder to me that you're in like the red zone for getting another fracture or another injury, because this is your body saying that it's depleted. And I think sometimes when you've had a long-term condition or an autoimmune disorder, it can just add that fuel to your recovery, because you know that you've got to look after your body in the best way you can, because your body actually can fail you and your body can break down. And if we don't give it the nourishment and the fuel it needs, there is a greater chance that it will start breaking down, and it might then lead, you just never know, it might lead to a long-term condition or illness.
Do you mind me asking? So you said the fractures thing is a regular...
I mean, I would get them every 3 years, like clockwork, from when I was about 14. And then in the last 5 years, I just got I've had a fracture or a stress reaction pretty much every year. And that's because of osteopenia, because I didn't eat enough and I didn't nourish my bones, and therefore, I've got this condition that I have to manage.
Yeah.
So anything that's high impact, and if my body isn't completely fueled, then obviously my bone density won't rebuild. And that's something that I've had to really sit with, and I've had to also sit in a number of doctor's appointments where they've said to me, well, you're going to have to get your weight to a higher level before your body feels safe enough to start rebuilding bone. Because your body can get to an okay weight and it can start functioning hormonally and things, but actually to start laying down new bone, it needs to be in a surplus. And that's hard to hear as someone who's had a restrictive eating disorder, right? And I'm sure that's something you can relate to.
Yeah, I actually don't weigh myself. So firstly, I'm sorry, because that's not an easy thing. I have a few girlfriends who still years later have the same condition. But I don't, now if I see my weight on a scale, I'm okay. Like I do it at the doctor's or this, but I just don't think it's helpful for me to do that, because I used to do it compulsively. And, I understand why BMI is something that exists, but it's not a real accurate measure, because, someone could be a personal trainer, and because they've got so much muscle on them, their BMI is going to tell them that they're, need help.
My brother's clinically obese, and you would look at him and you'd be like, sorry, what? Like, is that some kind of joke?
Right. See, and so it's, And when by the way, I want to take back what I said with need help, because, you know, I mean, medically speaking, what doctors would say. So also, as a woman with, my hormones are such bastards, like they fucking suck. And I could weigh myself, if I weighed myself every single day, my weight could fluctuate 5 to 7 kilograms every single day, depending on what's going on. And I don't want to have a bad day based on a figure that I've seen, because it isn't a reflection of my worth, or and it shouldn't be something that determines whether or not I have a good day or if I feel beautiful. But I still, this is not to say that I don't struggle with how I still view myself physically. Like I said, with starting the podcast, I've been so self-conscious. I've been really, really self-conscious to, you know, particularly with the video, to put myself out there in that way. So yeah. And, you know, I if you keep this in, right, I mentioned it, you're allowed to keep this in. I mentioned before we started recording that I was concerned that I was gonna, you know, cough all over your fucking microphone, and it's from reflux, and that is something that I have years down the line because of the eating disorder. Also, in my first year of sobriety and recovery from my eating disorder, I like I said, I pounded Diet Coke Zero. Actually, Coke Zero was my poison, and just drank so much coffee that it's a miracle I pissed it all. And that paired with the years of the eating disorder, you know, at one point in my anorexia, my digestive system stopped working. And so still years later of consistent, like, just being okay, I still get really bad reflux.
And see, this is what I think we need to highlight to people who are listening, who are struggling with an eating disorder, is the long-term implications. And I know that it doesn't necessarily make a difference, because a doctor sat me down when I was 15 and he said to me, you are setting yourself up for years of issues with your bones if you do not start fueling your body properly now. And I wasn't ready to hear it. I actually welcome the fact I didn't have a period. I love the fact that all my friends had these hormonal fluctuations throughout the month and, you know, felt awful. And I was just, you know, flatlining in a hormonal sense. It was great in a way. And because I was so sporty, I loved the fact that I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to worry about the energy surges and the dips. And I liked being flat-chested in a way, because it meant that I didn't have to worry about wearing bras and stuff. And I didn't have these things jiggling around when I was doing sport. So...
Oh, yeah, I used to have big tits. like I would rest them on the table because they were so big. And my mom would be like, Anna, get your boobies off the table. It's dinner time. So, yeah, that I'm happy that, you know, anyway, I digress.
But what I'm saying is that I really feel that if we can relay this message to particularly young people who are in the thick of an eating disorder, it's like, actually, if you could fast forward 20 years and know that your body is just not going to bounce back, because when you're in your like teens and 20s, it can bounce back pretty quickly. However, when you get to the decades after that, it's you're suddenly having to unravel a lifetime of abusing your body. And it's not fun. It's really not.
But I think with that, right, like, it's not your fault that,
no,
you know, and it's not other people's fault that they are, because I think you could have probably told me that I would be 31 years old, spewing like cough everywhere because I've had a bit of fucking lemon, and I would have still been doing it because I just couldn't stop it. But I do hear you with what the doctor had said to you, because initially I really needed compassion, because I had zero compassion for myself. I wanted to just rip my skin off all of the time. I was in hell. I was, you know, so suicidal. I've also just become so aware that I say, you know, every 5 seconds. And if you didn't notice it, you will now. And I needed that compassion. But then I did need some tough love at moments also. And because I needed a combo, but I really, really needed compassion, because I had blamed myself for a really long time.
I think that's a key point. I think it's the combination between compassion, people creating a safe space where you don't feel judged and ashamed, but at times that tough love, because if you have too much compassion, it sort of indulges and enables the disorder.
Totally. I think in getting some of that tough love, it gave me agency, because I before I had the support and everything, and it can be hard to find the right support too. Before I heard other people share about their experiences with it, I wrongly thought that I could control what was going on, and I couldn't, because I was in the throes of a really, really deadly disorder. But later down, I thought I was stuck. I thought, shit, this is it. But then later down the line, when I was, further into my recovery, realizing that I had agency in it, and that it sort of gave me a sense of power too, in, oh shit, okay, I don't have to, I have some control over what is going on here. And that looks like, to me, separate from the food, focusing on my mental health. Yeah.
It's also reframing it as, this is not what I have to do. It's, I am choosing to do this. And I think when you can try and flip that narrative in your head, so, okay, if I'm missing a meal, I don't have to miss this meal. I'm choosing to miss it. If I want to go and have a glass of wine, I'm choosing to have the glass of wine. I don't have to have it, and I don't have to have 10. And actually, as you said, reclaiming that sense of agency and that sense of self, which I also feel can arise as a result of tough love. Because I remember when a friend said to me, like, Dora, I don't want to have dinner with you because I actually find it quite triggering, and it actually brings up quite a lot of my own anxiety around food. Although I hated her for saying it, and I felt suddenly so judged and on edge and insecure about our friendship, long term, it actually really made me rethink, well, Pandora, is that the person you want to show up as in a restaurant with a friend at the table? Would you find it uncomfortable? And the answer is yes, I would find it uncomfortable eating with me, because at times my behavior was so extreme. And of course, sometimes those comments are unwarranted, and sometimes they're inappropriate and they're said at the wrong time. However, I do think that it's that combination of a friend making you feel so safe and loved, but also giving you the facts, because people can wrap you up in cotton wool, and it sort of keeps the disorder going and alive, right?
Yeah, 100%. And because the fact is, for me, is that if I didn't have my support around me, and I wasn't going and doing those things just because they make me feel good, I would drink again, and I would my eating disorder would happen again. So I think people didn't really say anything to me about my drinking. My family did when I was a teenager, but it just made me so fucking defiant. Sort of, I'll show you. And the same in my eating when I was larger, the comments that I would get from people, again, I would just develop this I'm going to show you thing, because I was so stung by it. But then people didn't really say anything to me about the anorexia until it reached a point where it was really obvious. And then I would get really angry when people would say stuff to me. But it did help to hear it in a lot of ways. It's very hard to say the right thing to someone in an eating disorder. Very, very, very hard. Even though I've experienced it myself, I still don't know if I could say the right thing to somebody. Because we're all individuals, right? And people are always going to be different in what they're going through. And it is just, no one could have said the right thing to me then. If someone said you're looking healthy, I would have thought they were saying you look
like you've put on weight, and you look fat.
You look like you've put on weight.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really also when I was overweight, I wish people would have just said the word fat. Also, by the way, which I know sounds really contradictory to what I've been saying about what I went through, but I was fat. And like, fat is not a bad word. It can hurt. It can sting a little bit, I guess, if somebody would have said it to me. But I just felt like everyone was dancing around me in a way and judging me and being really shitty. And I don't know. I feel like there also is some power and just call me. Like, just.
But would that have actually helped? Like, really? Because would that have not just sent you into a complete cycle of shame and self-hatred?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, in hindsight, like looking at it now, it just felt like I was being treated a certain way and it wasn't really being like, I don't know. It's in the same way that I say I'm an alcoholic. Do you know what I mean? I just feel like it would have
given you ownership in a way, or
yeah, in a way, just being like, yeah, I'm fucking fat. Like, what's the problem? But I just felt so bad about myself at the time. I think it would have depended, right? Like, I don't think I'm explaining it properly. I think people are just, I guess, sort of in the same way, like, let's say the word slut, you know, like now, so you know how people are like reclaiming it. I read this book, I think it is called Sluts, and in the introduction page, she goes, you know, one of the examples is people will say things like, oh, you know, I'm a total slut for cheese or something like this. And in that way, kind of just taking a word and just being like,
yeah.
yeah.
How do you find the world of relationships and friendships, which is, I know, a theme that your new podcast is dwelling on? I'd like to know how that's changed from when you were in the depths of your eating disorder compared to today.
Oh my God, so much. Because I actually have friendships and you know, relationships in my life. Because I was not present when I was going through everything I was going through. I wasn't able to enjoy anything that was going on. And when I was, well, firstly, I didn't date for 5 years at one point because I just felt so oof. And with my friendships, I was always canceling, etc. I wasn't very reliable with my drinking. Also, I was just, you know, total main character energy. I just wanted all of the fucking attention because I wanted validation, and I just didn't have any I had some close friends who, oh my goodness, stuck by me through everything, and they're just the biggest diamonds ever. Shout out to Max and Vera. Where the fuck are these? But when it came to dating, towards the end, I was dating because I wanted someone to fix me. And I thought if somebody loves me, that then I'm going to love myself. And that is a recipe for disaster. And I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. And then in recovery, slowly, like now I have friendships that, friendships that have saved my life really, where I feel like I'm a good friend and where they're incredible friends. I feel so lucky to have them in my life, and it's really nourishing relationships. And where I don't make it, you know, it's healthy, and so that's completely changed. And I'm able to go out and do things I never thought that I would be able to go to, restaurants or this or that, or because the eating disorder and the drinking took everything away from me. I had nothing left anymore, and it just kept getting worse. And then from a, you know, relationship dating standpoint, I'm seeing somebody now, and I would not have been capable of being in something this healthy and lovely even at the start of my recovery. And this sounds like such a wanky thing to say, but it's only happened with my friendships or, you know, dating because my relationship with myself has changed, and because other people support has helped me get to that point. So yeah, I think the whole thing of love yourself, again, that's one of those statements that makes me want to, but because I don't always love myself, but I do respect myself. And that has helped me a lot. I do joke consistently on the podcast that it would be so funny if me and this guy break up, because I have publicly just been speaking about him, and then it'll be, you know, when you're like messaging your girlfriends, I've met somebody, and then a week later it's, oh, never mind, he was a turd, or oh, you know, never mind, he nixed it. This will be like a really public version of that, but luckily probably, you know, maybe only 80 people will listen to my show. So
shut up. No, I doubt that's the case. But I think, like you said, it's not necessarily about loving yourself. I think it's like convincing yourself that A, you have agency, and B, you can look after yourself.
Yeah,
I think it's like the key piece is like you're able to look after yourself. We're not always going to love ourselves because we're humans, but actually that ability to know that if I'm tired, I can rest, and if I have energy, then I can do what the hell I want to do, but I will not go to that place of self-destruction anymore. And that place of self-destruction instead of becoming a bit thrilling, it becomes quite scary.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I'm navigating right now. It's like, I don't want to keep going into those danger zones. I don't want to live on the precipice of, okay, this is really, really risky and I'm being really reckless with my life here, because essentially that's what we are living in, because we don't feel alive, right? When we're in the grips of a disorder, we're kind of seeking those thrills because we're so numb within ourselves that we want to feel some semblance of life and being alive. And when you can just find those little pleasures in the small dopamine hits rather than the huge swings.
Oh, I love dopamine.
Yeah, don't we all, hun? But I think, and that's the key, I think. And in looking after yourself, sometimes life is a bit more boring. But it's sort of safer, and in some ways it just feels like more of a warm blanket rather than a sort of a nail shirt, as it were.
But I think it also gives you space for life, right? Like I was so in hell that I didn't have hobbies.
No.
I wasn't doing anything because I didn't know who I was and I didn't know what I liked. And now I am someone who knows what things I enjoy, and like I have a life of my own. I feel like I would look at women who would be, I don't know, going to fucking brunch and smiling and having a good time and say, oh, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that. And I just thought, how are you functioning? I don't understand. And I don't know, like I feel like I can do life now, which is nice, but I forgot what the fuck I was saying. Can you tell that I'm neurodiverse? I think it's okay to just say yes.
No,
because
I can't.
Really?
Because I use my train of thought the whole time. But maybe I'm also neurodiverse. So I don't know. But no, I agree. So anyone who is in the grips of an eating disorder who's listening and thinks, oh my God, how, Anna, have you done it? And what should I do to just take one step forward today? What would you say to them?
Oh God, I don't even know if I can answer that really, because I'm not a professional in that, and I think it's such a complex disorder, and I think it is hard to know what to do when you're in it. But I think what would have helped me at the time is knowing that recovery is possible.
Yeah.
And there are also great charities out there, like Beat is one of them, Beat Eating Disorders UK. They're fantastic.
Mind is another one.
Mind is also great. I think, start maybe reaching out and looking into that side of things, and hopefully, and the support will be there. But it is tricky, right? Because government funding with the NHS and all of this stuff, it makes it hard. But it is definitely, recovery is possible. And I thought that I was stuck and that was going to be my life forever. And so it was groundbreaking for me when I met a woman who had recovered from anorexia. And that in itself was enough. Well, not enough, that in itself was a real, oh fuck, this isn't a life sentence. And I think that is what I would say to somebody, is that, it's hard and the world does not make it easy, but definitely have compassion for yourself, which is easier said than done. And yeah, just know that it is possible. So yeah.
Well, I find you incredibly inspiring. So thank you for coming here today. And yeah, truly, you're just a great beacon of hope for lots of people out there. And I'm excited to listen to your new podcast about, what is it? Fannies and Feelings.
Fanny and Feelings, baby.
Can't wait.
I'm kind of firstly, thank you. I'm proud of myself because I grew up here, so when people give me compliments, I've really had to practice not pulling a face or saying something like, oh, thanks, it only cost me £1 or something,
Yeah.
So
don't
thank
deflect.
you.
Don't
I
do
won't
an
deflect.
English deflection. Yeah.
But I've summarized with the podcast, I've summarized it into like a tagline of love and lust without liquor. So that's kind of so,
love and lust without liquor.
Yeah,
there you go.
If you think that you learned a lot about me today, you're going to learn a fucking lot about me on the show.